All right, right here, we're going to start the in-cab inspection. You're going to start on the inside of the truck for the modernized version of the pre-trip inspection. The examiner is going to be inside. You got an hour and 30 minutes to do the whole pre-trip inspection. So you're going to start on the inside of the truck. Make sure that when you get in and out of the truck, that you are using your 3 points of contact, right? There's always like hand grabs, and then you got the steps, uh, the steps to get into the tractor, right? Let's go to the next slide. Once you climb in the truck using 3 points of contact, you're going to sit in the seat and you're going to put on your seat belt. You don't have to say anything about the seat belt. You're just going to put it on, put your seat belt on, and be done with it. Next thing you're going to do, we're going to safe start the truck. How do we safe start the truck? You want to make sure that the truck is in neutral, that your brakes are applied, which means to both valves. The yellow is for the tractor, the red is for the trailer. You want to make sure that those both valves are pushed out. When you turn the key to cycle the truck, when you turn the key, right, you're going to turn the key to cycle the truck. These lights are what they're looking for. You're looking for these lights in the truck. So you're going to look at your ABS light for your truck and trailer, because when you cycle the key, you're going to hear these clicks. It's going to go click, 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 click. That's the ABS light. The ABS modules are talking to each other. At that moment, the ABS light is going to light up in the dash. And at the same time, if the truck is equipped with DEF, which is diesel exhaust fluid, you're going to have your DEF indicators. They're going to come on and off. Depending on your manufacturer, they're in different locations. And they're going to look like this. It's going to look like a little wind blowing. That's going to be your DEF light. So you're going to safe start the truck. Truck's in neutral. Your brakes are applied. You turn the key. Let the truck cycle. At the same time it's cycling, you're looking at your truck and trailer for your ABS light to come on and off, and your DF indicators to come on and off on your dash. As you turn the truck on and the truck's building air, we can go ahead and check these in-cab items, right? Because uh, we got a lot of things that we got a couple of these things that we can check as the truck's building air. Remember, our governor cutoff is between 120 and 140 psi, or governor cutoff. So the first thing I'm going to check my light indicators, right? I'm going to turn on my lights. I got my low beam, my high beams. I got both my left and right turn signals, and I have my four-way flashers. The next thing I'm checking for, according to the list, I'm checking for my safety equipment. What's my safety equipment? I got 6 spare fuses that are in the in-cab somewhere, or they're there relatively visible. I got my 3 reflective triangles. I got my fire extinguisher. It's fully charged and it's secured, right? Sometimes the fire extinguisher and the triangles are put away in a cubbyhole. For the most part, a lot of fire extinguishers are right there, right off the driver's seat. The triangles are sometimes put away in a little uh, underneath the seat or in a storage compartment somewhere inside the tractor. Next thing I have my windshield and my traffic monitoring devices, which are my mirrors. My windshield and my traffic monitoring devices are what? They're both securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. They're clean and clear. My windshield has no obstructions, and my mirrors are adjusted to the driver. All right, let's go to the next slide. The next slide, I got my wipers and washers, right? The wipers and washers They're securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. They work and they squirt. The next thing I have my heater and my defrost. I'm going to turn on the, there's the knobs. It has like a two function knob, which is a little squiggly line and the little man. I'm going to turn on for the both functions. I'm going to wave my hand above and below, and I'm going to tell the examiner they're working properly. I'm just making sure that they're blowing air. You don't have to sit there and let the truck heat up and blow hot air because it's going to take a while for the engine to heat up. So it's just making sure that they're blowing air. My city horn and my air horn. Some people say country horn, highway horn. My city horn and my air horn. You're going to activate both horns, and then you're going to say they're working properly. This is, you can beep beep on the city horn, bump bump on the air horn. It's as simple as that. Let's go to the next slide. This is kind of what you're looking for. You're looking your mirrors, your windshield. Right here, you got your wipers and washers. Here, sometimes some trucks here on the dash is where you have your light switch, right? And then on your steering wheel is where you have like the little lever which activates the turn signals and your high beams, and then some trucks here next to the tractor and the trailer protection valve. Around here sometimes they have like what you would call the hazard lights, or sometimes the trucks have them here on the steering column. Is where your four-way flashers. And then the city horn, some of them have them. Most of the trucks have the city horn here, and then the older, more classic trucks have the pull string here. So your city horn and your country horn right here. You got your heater and defrost, and then, like I said, sometimes to the side, you got your fire extinguisher, your 3 red reflective triangles, and then right here, little small spare fuses. Okay, let's go to the next slide. This is just an out where we can look at the display when you're looking through where here you got the tachometer, you got the mile per hour, you got the turn signals. When we say primary and secondary air supplies, you got the primary is the tractor, the secondary is the trailer. Here you got like the little high beam signal around here. Like this is like a heads up, like a display panel. Right there, when the truck turns on and off, you'll have the ABS light and the DEF light come on here. If the truck has DEF, this truck in particular does not have DEF, so you can see that there's no gauges for DEF. Let's go to the next slide. DEF is diesel exhaust fluid. If the truck doesn't have it, don't worry about it. Just don't mention it. So now as we start the truck's kind of just turn on. The truck is building up air pressure. After you say start the vehicle, we're waiting for the governor to cut off. The governor should cut off between 120 and 140 psi, right? So we're looking at our air gauges here, and we're going to see where the air gauge cuts off or not. If it cuts off within range, all you got to tell the examiner is, hey, my governor kicked in, it's within range, it's working properly. Only if it's outside of the range is where you're going to tell the examiner at what PSI the truck cut off at. This is just a basic, 120 to 140. All trucks, most of the trucks are like that. Some trucks go off at 100, another ones go off at 150. It's whatever the equipment is governed to. But when it goes off, even though it's outside of the range that the state or the test is telling you it's still working properly. So the only thing is it's working properly, but it's outside of its range. Let's go to the next slide. As the truck's running, truck's building up air, the governor kicks in. What's the next thing I'm going to do? I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to check for my air leaks, right? How do I perform my air leak test? Easy. I'm going to turn the truck off. I'm going to turn the truck off. I'm going to turn the key back to accessory. At the same time, I'm going to put my foot on the brake pedal. I'm going to press and hold my foot on the brake pedal. Then I'm going to push in both of the valves, right? Remember, yellow for tractor, red for trailer. I'm going to push in both of these valves. Once I push in the valves, I have to wait for the air to stabilize, right? It'll be at the governed pressure. I push in the valves, the air might go down by a little bit, right? So I have to wait for the air to stabilize. After the initial loss of air, I should not lose more than 4 psi in 1 minute. So when I push in the valves and the air goes shh, and it sort of like stops and the needles don't move anymore, then I'm going to tell the examiner, my time begins now. And then I hit the clock and then I count for exactly 60 seconds or 1 minute, right? At that moment, what we're checking for the integrity of the system, right? The air leak test is made because when the truck is running, the air compressor is gear driven. So as the truck is running, it's always producing air. How do you check to make sure that the system's working properly? You have to check by doing the air leak test, you're doing the alarm, and you're doing the emergency brake test. So this is the first test to make sure that we're checking the integrity of the braking system, because the trucks use air to produce stopping power, right? So push on the brake pedal, the air stabilize, make sure you let the air stabilize before you start the timer. The air stabilizes, the needles don't move, hit the clock. Once the clock runs out and you're at a minute, tell the examiner, hey, take your foot off the brake pedal so he hears the brake disengage. Then you can tell the examiner, I did not hear no leaks outside, because you do the air leak test with the window open. I did not hear no leaks outside. I did not see my needles move, right? My primary is a tractor. Secondary is a trailer. I did not see my needles move more than 4 psi. Therefore, I have no leaks. Let's go to the next slide. The next slide is what we're checking for. We're checking for my air warning device, which is my low air warning alarm, right? All trucks have a low air warning. Typically, it's going to go at above 60. When you go below 60 psi, the alarm is going to come on. But here in the state of Florida, they want us to say 55 psi. So what am I going to do? I still have the truck turned off. Now I'm checking the integrity of the system, which I'm going to check to see if this air warning alarm or low air warning alarm, if the air warning device, if it's actually working properly. So what I'm going to do, without restarting the truck, I'm going to fan my brakes further, right? I'm going to push on my brake until my alarm comes on. I push on the brake. Psh, 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 psh. The light or the alarm, sometimes you'll see like a little light here. Remember, primary is the tractor, is the yellow. Secondary is the trailer, is the red. Sometimes they'll have a little light here, or there's like a little thing that says brake. The light will turn on. Sometimes it's audible on the audible sound. Sometimes it's just the light that says brake. The light comes on, you tell the examiner, my lower warning light came on. My lower warning light is working properly. If it's within the range, right? That's why I say you gotta step on the brake pedal. Don't stomp on it. Step on it softly so you don't bleed the truck completely uh, below 55 psi. Right? You don't have to smash the brake pedal. Just softly step on it softly. All right. Let's go to the next slide. The next part of the air brake, where we're checking for the integrity of the system. All right. Right now, we're checking the emergency brake test. Right? We're checking the spring brakes because the emergency brake and the spring brakes are two of the same. Like I was saying earlier, we're checking the integrity of the system. So if the system's bleeding air and there's an air leak in the system and the truck is losing so much air, once it goes past 55 psi and it continues to lose air, the spring brakes should pop up between 20 and 45 psi, right? So now we're going to check the integrity of the emergency brake by continuing to fan the brakes, dropping the air pressure for it to be between 20 and 45 psi. So you're going to continue to fan the brakes. The buttons pop out. They're within range. You're going to tell the examiner, hey, my emergency brake slash spring brakes popped out. You look here at the gauges, right? P primary is yellow, S secondary is the red, right? Tractor and trailer. The brakes popped out. They're within range. You tell the examiner, hey, the valves popped out. They're within range. They're working properly, right? Then you're gonna tell the examiner. You're gonna take a moment and you're gonna make sure that you didn't forget anything. 4 psi in 1 minute after the initial loss of air. You fan the brakes at 55 psi and above. The alarm should come on. You're going to continue to fan the brakes for the emergency brakes slash spring brakes to come on between 20 and 45 psi. If you did that and you believe that you haven't missed anything, you can go ahead and continue to the next part of the exam. If for whatever reason you're like, man, I completely forgot what the hell I just inspected. You're allowed to restart the air brake test, right? Or the leak test. You're able to start the test over, but you have to start from the beginning, which means you have to build the air pressure back up. You got to turn the truck on, let the governor kick in, and then so on and so forth. All right. All right. Now that we checked the brakes for the brakes popped out, now we have to restart the truck. So you're going to safe start the vehicle and you're going to build up your air pressure to at least 90 psi, right? During this buildup, you can finish the in-cab items if you haven't done all of them, or you can recheck all your in-cab items. Remember, it's just a few things. So in order, and you have the list, it's just a few things, and I rather check them, like go over them and check and recheck. So like that, I'm gonna set the tone for the test, right? Turn the truck on, safe start, let the air pressure build above 90 psi, right? For both. Remember, you got primary and secondary. Both air gauges, both tanks have to be at above 90 psi. What I normally do, I let it run up past 100, right? And then we should be good to go. Now, let's go to the next part. Next thing that we're checking, once we have built the air pressure up, to beyond 90 psi. We're going to check. We're going to do the parking and the trailer brake check, right? First thing we're doing, we're going to tug on the tractor brake, right? You're going to push in the red button, right? Which is the trailer. Trailer is red, tractor is yellow. So I'm going to push in my trailer because I'm going to check my tractor, right? I'm going to pull out the yellow. The button's already pulled out because they popped out. So I'm going to push in the yellow and make sure that the yellow's popped out. I'm going to just barely put the truck in gear. In automatic, you just put it in drive. And some of these automatics, they just sit there. They don't even move. It's like a fail safe. Like if you put the truck in neutral and you put the truck in drive and then the brakes are engaged, you got like 15 or 30 seconds to do this, or the truck will automatically go into neutral. So the automatics, you have to do it really quick. A stick shift truck, you're going to put the truck in first gear. You're going to lift your foot off the clutch slowly. And then when you feel like the clutch pinches and the truck is going to rock a little bit, you just tugged on your truck brake. My tractor did not move. The tractor brakes are working properly, right? So the next thing you're going to check your trailer brake. So we're going to be tugging on the trailer brake. So you're going to apply the trailer brake, right? You're going to pull out the red button. Now you're going to push in the yellow. Remember, we're going to push in the tractor because we're going to check the trailer. So I'm pushing in the yellow button and I'm going to pull out the red button. I'm going to put the truck in gear, in first gear or in drive for a neutral. I'm going to lift my foot off the clutch or press on the accelerator or press on the throttle softly to see if the truck engages. Once it engages, I take my foot off the clutch. I feel the pinch. Like, you don't have to dump the clutch. You just got to let the truck, or the examiner, you'll feel when the truck tugs. It's not going to go anywhere. The truck, you tug on the trailer did not move. The trailer brakes are working properly. And at this moment in time, since we're kind of tugging on the trailer, we're tugging on that connection, right? We're tugging on the fifth wheel connection. So you're going to tell the examiner, I have no play in my fifth wheel connection, right? The next thing we're going to check, we're checking the parking and the trailer brake check. So we're checking the service brakes. Now we're going to push in both the buttons, right? I'm going to push in the tractor. I'm going to push in the trailer because I'm going to check my service brakes. I'm going to uh, release my tractor and my trailer brakes. So I'm going to push in the yellow, which is the tractor, and I'm going to push in the red, which is the trailer. I'm going to put the truck in gear. You can put it in second or third if it's a stick. You have to go at least 5 miles an hour. If you go in first, it's going to take forever for the truck to go up to 5. So you can start in second or third. You're going to take your foot off the clutch softly, let the truck roll forward, then you're going to give it a little bit of throttle for the truck to speed up beyond 5 miles an hour. You're going to be holding the steering wheel with both hands. You're not going to be like grasping it. You're going to kind of hold it in the palm of your hand. You're going to pull forward. You're going to stop the truck smoothly. You're going to come to a smooth stop. If the steering wheel moves left or right, the truck needs to be aligned. There's something wrong with alignment. So you're going to pull forward, press on the brake, holding the steering wheel softly. Hey, my steering wheel did not move left or right, and the truck stopped, so my service brakes are working properly, right? After this is over, what we can do, you're gonna pop the brake, put the truck in neutral. As the truck's running, As a rule of thumb, before I have the examiner check the lights outside, right? I'm going to tell the examiner, hey, Mr. Examiner, can you please help me check my lights outside? I'm going to tell him, man, I'm so ready. I need you to go help me check my lights outside. Some of the examiners might tell you, are you sure you want to check the lights outside? He's kind of telling you, hey, man, you forgot something. And what you forgot, it's probably the air brake test. Because all these things here that we're doing here, like the parking, the tractor trailer, and the service brakes, that's just points. It's the air leaks, 4 psi, 55 psi, and 20 to 45 psi. That's what's going to burn you if you forget them, right? This stuff here is just points. So after you do that, you you verify what you've done, what you've checked off on the list that they give you. And if you feel comfortable, you tell the examiner, right, please help me check my lights outside. He'll get outside and then he'll check the lights outside the truck. Now, on the YouTube channel, I have a video that goes over that because if I explain it, the video is going to be 100 hours long. And every time I explain it, people they don't they don't see it. They're like, huh? They're not gonna they're not gonna understand what I'm saying. All right, this next slide. Remember, we just finished doing the in cab. You're gonna hold for a second. You're gonna tell the examiner, all right, can you please check my lights outside? He'll get outside of the vehicle, right? He's gonna be standing here like if he's waiting for a bus. You have to tell him what to check, right? He's gonna stand in front of. He's gonna stand right here. He's not gonna ask you. You have to tell him what to check. All right, Mr. Examiner, check my left turn signal, my right turn signal, my high beam, my low beam, my four-way flashers, check my clearance lights on my truck and trailer, right? And then he'll stand right here. He'll come back around and he'll stand right here like he's waiting for the school bus. If he doesn't immediately come to the door and tell you, all right, Mr. and Mrs. John, John or Jane Doe, let's say Mr. and Mrs. Smith. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, please step out of the vehicle. We're going to conduct our pre-trip inspection outside. If he stands right here, that means that he wants you to have him check the lights on the right. Marker lights, running lights, turn signals, four-way flashers. Then he'll come back around and then he'll stand right here. He doesn't come to the door and say, okay, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, please step out of the vehicle. We're going to do a pre-trip. He wants you to tell him to check the running light, marker lights, turn signals, and four ways on the left side of the vehicle. And then the last thing he'll have you check. If he checks them right there and he's looking at you and you're looking at him or her and you're like, oh my gosh, you want me to check the back lights too? Then he or she will walk to the back of the truck and then you kind of have to like scream out the window, hey, left turn signal, right turn signal, my four-way flashers. Can you please check my marker / clearance lights on my truck, on my trailer? On the trailer, and then you're going to press on the brake pedal, four-way flashers, and then you're going to press on the brake pedal, psh, 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 and my brake lights. Then he or she will come over here and then tell you, all right, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, let's get out the vehicle and let's start our pre-trip inspection. Right? So when you come out of the vehicle, the first thing you're checking for is your lenses, right? Lenses is right here. You got the headlight assembly. You got these lights that are up here, like the marker lights, the turn signals, the four-way flashers. We're not talking about any of that stuff. No, you're doing it very vague. Hey, my lenses. What about my lenses, right? And then here, you're looking, hey, my truck, front to back and side to side, my truck is sitting level. It's not leaning to any side. Let's go to the next slide. Talk about the lenses. What are we checking for the lenses? All my lenses, they are what? They're securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. They're the proper color. They're not missing, and they're clean and clear, right? That's what you check for the lenses. What's the next thing on the list? Because first thing on the list is the lenses. The next thing on the list is you got like your fluid levels, right? There's three things you're checking for the fluid levels. You can combine them or you can separate them. At the beginning, you can learn them separated, and then later on, you can combine them as long as you say the proper verbiage. And if there's any descriptive words or keywords, like here on the coolant, you got the coolant reservoir, and then you got the power steering reservoir. Those keywords there are going to be proper level, right? Because you got your coolant, you got your power steering reservoir, and you have your dipstick. So let's see, what are we talking about for the coolant and the power steering reservoir? Because we're talking about the fluid level. So my coolant and my power steering reservoir. What about them both? They're both securely mounted. They're not cracked and not broken. My caps are tight. The hoses are not leaking. You got the proper level. They're between add and full. Add and full, minimum and maximum, hot and cold. However you learn it, as long as you say any of those three combinations. Let's go to the next slide. The next thing we're checking for the fluid levels is we're checking the dipstick, right? The dipstick, this is how where you check the engine oil. So the dipstick, uh, you're going to say my dipstick is securely mounted. You don't have to take the dipstick out. You just got to look for it, right? The fluid levels consist of three things. You got the coolant reservoir, you have the power steering reservoir, and you have the dipstick. You have to name all three to get the point. It's three items for 1 point. So let's see, what are we checking for on the dipstick? The dipstick is also, remember, it's also part of the fluid levels. It's the dipstick is securely mounted. You don't have to do this. You're just going to explain to the examiner how you would check the oil level, the level of oil inside the engine. You're going to pull out the dipstick. You're going to clean the dipstick. You're going to put it in again, right? Put the dipstick back in to the engine, and you're going to pull out and check for proper level between add and full, hot and cold operating range. Different dipsticks have different, but you're basically checking for the proper level. This stuff is your bread and butter, folks. Like when you're doing your pre-trip inspection, for the most part, every day you have to do a pre-trip inspection. So you would, this is going to be like a walk around. When you do a walk around of the pre-trip, most of the stuff you're looking and listening, right? Looking for leaks, listening for air leaks. Uh, you are going to check your fluid levels, coolant, power steering, and you always check your oil level because diesel trucks, as they're running, they're burning oil, right? They're always burning oil. So you always got to check the oil level. Some trucks have alarms that tell you you have low air oil level. I don't trust any of that stuff. There's nothing like pulling out the dipstick and checking visually. All right, let's see the next slide. So the next thing, according to the checklist, right? The checklist they give you, the next thing you're checking for fluid and air leaks. What leaks fluid and air, right? The engine has several different types of fluid going through it. Same thing with the transmission. And they both have air flowing through them, right? My engine and transmission, that's what I'm checking for, right? What leaks fluid? On the engine, I have hoses, fittings might be not present or loose. The hoses might be cut or torn or leaking. Here, there's an example of the airlines. The airlines, they mostly come out of uh, the front part of the firewall, and they're different colors. The airlines can be leaking. That's what we're checking for, because the first thing was the fluid levels. The next thing is the fluid and air leaks. So my engine and transmission are securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. I don't see leaks of fluids, and I don't hear any air leaks. All right, let's go to the next slide. Now I got my steering system, right? The next thing that comes up on the checklist is my steering system. Steering system consists of two parts, right? You got the gearbox, this is the first part. Second part is the linkage. So my steering system, which is my gearbox, what about my gearbox? The gearbox, securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. There's no leaks. The hoses from my gearbox to my power steering reservoir are securely mounted. There's no cuts, no tears, no leaks. You can put there's no missing hardware. The examiner might say, what do you mean by missing hardware? Because on the low pressure side, you have clamps. On the high pressure side, you have fittings. That goes for anything that has liquid going through it. You always got like a high and low pressure. Unless like the fuel lines and stuff like that, those are all high pressure. The next thing that comes up on your steering system, remember it's two parts. The first part was the gearbox. The second part is your 5-piece steering linkage. Now, you don't have to remember any of the parts, right? Because you have pitman, drag link, you got the upper and lower control arm, and then you got the tie rod that goes from one side of the one side of the truck from one side to another. It ties the both tires together. It's just a link. We're just calling these arms and rods, right? To the next slide, we'll go over that. So my steering system, right? The steering system, which is two parts. My steering gearbox, and now my steering linkage. My steering gear linkage. My arms and rods are securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. My joints are not loose or worn. And then my castle nuts and pins in place. There's no missing hardware, right? Sometimes you can get away with saying no missing hardware, and the examiner might ask you, what do you mean by hardware? And then you can just tell them castle nuts and pins. All right, let's go to the next slide. The next thing, according to the list, what we're checking for our tire, right? Tires, the front tire to be exact. So you got the inside, the outside sidewall, and then you got the top of the tire, right? The top of the tire is where your tread's at. The sidewall, you're checking all three parts, right? Let's go to the slide. What about the tire? So my tire, inside, outside, and the top of my tire, they're what? Securely mounted. My tire has no cuts, no tears, no leaks, no exposed wires. The tread depth is 4/32 or more. How do I check that? I check that with a tread depth gauge. My tire has the proper inflation. How do I check the inflation of my tire? I check that with a air pressure gauge, right? Let's go to the next slide. All right, the next thing that we're checking for, according to the checklist, is your rim, right? Your front rim. We're checking the rim, right? What are we checking for on the rim, right? Let's see in the next slide. The rim, we're checking the rim, inside and outside of the rim, and right here where the bolt holes go, we're checking for any distortions on the bolt holes, right? So we got the rim inside and outside. Let's see what we're checking for on the rim, because I want you to see what the rim is and what the bolt holes are. All right, my rim. What about my rim? The inside and outside of my rim is securely mounted. It's not cracked, it's not broken. There's no illegal welds and there's no distortion of the bolt holes, right? Let's go to the next slide. On my rim, I have my valve stem, right? This is where I check the air pressure of my tire. And like 95% of the time, that valve stem, you can't see it to save your life. So you always got to remember when you're talking about the rim, always remember your valve stem. What about my valve stem, right? Let's go see the next slide. My valve stem, it's what? It's securely mounted. It's not cracked, not broken. Valve stem has no leaks. And the valve stem is tight, is the cap. It has the cap, it's tight and present, right? We're looking for caps, tight and present. Let's see what we're checking. Let's check out the next slide. Right, so now what are we checking for? The lug nuts and studs. This is what holds the rim down. So my lug nuts and studs, right? The lug nuts are here. These are the studs that come through the bolt holes, right? My lug nuts and studs. What about the lug nuts and studs? Let's check the next slide. My lug nuts and studs. What am I checking for? I'm checking to make sure they're both securely mounted. They both are not cracked and not broken. They both have no missing hardware. And where the tread, the lug nut, where the lug nut goes around the stud, they're talking about the threads. No shiny threads between the lug nut and the rim. Not on the outside, because when they change those lug nuts and they take them off, if there's rust or whatever, once you undo or you loosen the lug nut, it's going to clean the thread. So when they talk about shiny treads, it's between the lug nut and the tire. And then this rust trails when water seeps into where there's the lug nuts are not uh, tightened up correctly. There'll be rust as it gets water and it's raining and water gets in there. It'll start putting out a rust trail. That's why you see, for the most part, all the rims are either white or chrome. It's easier to detect when the rim gets dirty. There's something happening with the inner components, or the lug nuts are loose. All right, let's go to the next slide. So now they're making me go from the lug nuts and they're making me go back to the suspension. Right? So now I'm going to my suspension. Now, this is the frame, right? This is the frame, and I'm checking for four parts. For the most part, right here, if the truck had an airbag, I would mention the airbag. But for the most part, a lot of these trucks that schools use for testing purposes, they have no airbag. Airbag is reserved for like an over-the-road truck, like a truck that goes over the road. So we're checking the first thing I'm checking for my suspension. The suspension is 5 parts, right? I got spring mounts. I got a spring mount here and a spring mount here. Spring mount front and back, right? Then I got my leaf springs. The leaf springs that go from one spring mount to another. My leaf springs. I got my shock absorber, right? Shock absorbers right here. And in here, I got my U-bolts, right? So I got my spring mounts front and back. I got my leaf springs. I got my U-bolts that hold in the leaf springs. And I have my shock absorber. Let's see. What is it that we're checking on these 4 items, right? 1, 2, 3, and 4. What are we checking? That's my suspension system, right? Spring mounts, front and back, my leaf springs, my U-bolts, and my shock absorber. What about them? They're all securely mounted. They all not cracked, not broken. They're all have no missing hardware. My leaf spring and my U-bolt are not shifted or missing. My shock absorber is not leaking, right? We can combine them or we can say them separate. It's easier to combine them because all those parts, those 4 parts, are only 1 point. Let's go to the next slide. If the truck did have an airbag, this is where you would see it. Like right here is where the U-bolts run underneath here. And then there's like an airbag. There'll be like a bracket, top and bottom, in the airbag. Let's see if the truck did have an airbag, what would we check? What would we be checking for? My airbags, if equipped, are what? Securely mounted, no cuts, no tears, no leaks, no missing hardware, right? The next thing we're checking for as we work on our way outward, we got my brake lines and hoses, right? You got the chassis or the frame, the line comes through a hole. This brake line goes and feeds into the chamber, right? The brake chamber in the front is a single brake chamber, which is a service brake. So the air line feeds into the chamber, uh, and this is what we're looking for, right? My brake line and hoses. What about them? They're securely mounted. There's no cuts, no tears, no leaks. Your fittings are tight and present, and the brake lines and hoses supply air to my brake system. Right? Let's go to the next slide. My brake drum, the brake drum and linings. We're talking about the brake contaminants. This is the last thing that we check before we go to the outside of the truck. So my brake drum and your brake lining, your brake shoes, brake lining, brake shoes, brake pads. This is what they look like. What are we checking for on my brake drum and shoes or linings? They're what? They're both securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. There's no contamination on the brake drum and shoes of fluid, oil, and grease. That's it. Now you stop at the firewall, you check, you recheck what you did underneath the hood, go to the front of the truck, check the lenses. The next thing that we're checking, we're going to move to the outside part of the vehicle. So now we have lenses and reflectors, right? Anything that's a light the lens or a reflector. Sometimes the reflectors are along here next to the DOT tape, but my lenses and reflectors, and I'm saying all my lenses and reflectors, right? You got these that look like marker lights, turn signals, and some of these that don't light up, they're reflectors. They put them here. So my lenses and reflectors, what about them? All my lenses and reflectors on the side of the vehicle, they're securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. They got the proper color. They're not missing, and they're clean and clear. Same thing I said for the front, I say for the side. The only thing I'm going to add is reflectors. Let's go to the next slide. I got my traffic monitoring devices, right? I got my mirror and my bracket, right? What about my mirror and my bracket? What am I? Let's go to the next slide and let's see. What do we got to say about the traffic monitoring devices? That's the next thing on the list, right? So my mirror and my bracket, they're what? Securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. There's no missing hardware, and the mirror is clean and clear, right? Let's go to the next thing on the test, according to the list. You got the fuel and def tank, right? For the most part, the def tank, which is the diesel exhaust fluid, that's going to have a blue cap, and then the fuel tank is just going to have its regular traditional stainless steel tank. Some trucks have the battery box here over by the doors, and it's like a battery box slash steps, right? You got the def and the fuel tank. You can combine those two. Def, remember, def is diesel exhaust fluid. Let's check the next slide. My fuel and my DEF tank. What about them? They're both securely mounted. They're not cracked. They're not broken. There's no leaking from my hoses and or tanks. And my caps are tight and chain is present, right? On the fuel tank, you want to make sure you don't have to open it. It's you just got to say, hey, my caps are tight and sealed and my chain is present. Let's go to the next slide. The next thing we're checking for the battery box. Remember, there's different type of battery boxes. In the previous photo, in the last second to last slide, the first one we had the battery box by the steps. Some battery boxes like this one right here, they're by the catwalk. They call this a catwalk. This is a catwalk, and this is the steps to get onto the catwalk to hook up your hoses and stuff. The battery box, it has bungee cords here and here for the most part. You take off the bungee cords and you pull the top off. Uh, some battery boxes, they might be in a very, very awkward position, and the examiner is going to tell you, hey, man, don't worry about it because we have to take the truck apart to take the batteries out. But if it's accessible, you have to open the battery box. You don't have to take it out, but you have to at least open the battery box. What are we checking for on the battery box? Right? My cables and connections. My cables and connections, right? I want to make sure that they're present and tight. There's no corrosion on any of my connections. And remember, my batteries, they do have acid in them. And in the acid, the batteries could be leaking. So my battery box, securely mounted. It's not cracked, not broken. It opens and closes. My cables and connections are present and tight with no corrosion. And my batteries are not leaking. That's what we're checking for the battery box. Next thing we come up to according to the checklist, we got the frames, right? frames, and the cross members. My frames and cross members. Uh, Here's another look how you got the frame and then these things that connect. They're like the cross members. They go every couple of feet depending on the way the system's set up. Uh, this is where you have the wires and air lines are protected with this metal part here. So my frame and my cross members. What about the frame and cross members? This is the next slide has how the frame and cross members look on the trailer side. So here I got more frame and more cross members. Now, if you're doing an inspection with uh, a truck that has tandem trailers, or like a 53 footer, 48 or 45, and it has a sliding tandem, when you're checking the sliding tandem, you're checking your release arm is securely mounted, uh, not cracked, not broken, in the lock position. Sometimes these things have like a little, uh, they have like a little cotter pin, and then sometimes here the newer trucks have an air system. You push in the button, and these things go, and then they go in and out. When you slide the trailer, when you slide these tandems, these locking pins, you want to make sure that they lock in place. There's four of them, two on each side. So when you're sliding the tandems, make sure that when you do the release arm and you slide the tandems, and then these pins pop out. Make sure you check to make sure they pop out on all four, on both sides, all four pins. All right, let's keep going. My frames, truck and trailer, frames and cross members. What about them? Securely mounted, not cracked, not broken. No missing hardware. There's no missing cross members. On my trailer, there's no holes in my trailer floor, and there's no broken welds anywhere, right? That's what you're checking for your frames, truck and trailer. Let's go to the next slide. Next thing, what are we checking for? My hoses and connections, right? You got the connections that come from the tractor to the trailer. These are called glad hands. Blue is service, red is emergency, and the yellow is typically the electrical. You got the glad hands there. You got the electrical plug and the wire. It comes in, the glad hands in the lock position, and the electrical plug on the truck and trailer. I say truck and trailer so I don't forget them. I always combine them. So my air and electrical lines on my truck and trailer, they're securely mounted. No cuts, no tears, no leaks. There's no illegal tape on the electrical line and or airlines. They're not tangled in any way. And they got the proper clearance from the frame and the ground. So they're not touching, they're not dragging on the ground or on the catwalk or the frame. Let's go to the next slide. Next thing that comes up per the list is you got your fifth wheel skid plate. Remember the fifth wheel skid, this whole thing here is the fifth wheel assembly. The top of the fifth wheel is the skid plate because that's what skids underneath the apron. The skid plate or the fifth wheel skid plate sits on top of the platform. The platform is what's secured to the frame, right? You got the platform, and then here the platform is securely mounted. It's securely mounted to the frame. So let's see, what are we checking for on my fifth wheel skid plate? And remember, this release arm, when the apron, when the locking jaw, when the kingpin goes right through this slide, It pushes a pressure plate. The locking jaw wraps around the kingpin, and then the release arm is like a rat trap. It's gonna lock into position. It's gonna move over here because the locking jaw got engaged around the kingpin, and that's how you check your locking and safety devices. But we'll keep going. There's another slide up a little bit further up. What are we checking for on the fifth wheel skid plate? Right, the skid plate securely mounted to the platform. It's not cracked, not broken. No missing hardware. Properly greased and not worn. And the release arm and the safety latch are in the locked position. All right, let's go to the next slide. The apron is the bottom of the trailer, and the kingpin that's in the center of the apron, right? So I got my kingpin and my apron. What are we checking for on the kingpin and the apron? Right? The kingpin and apron, what about them? They're securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. They're properly greased and not worn. And there's no space between the apron and the skid plate, right? No space, no gap. I don't see any light. Let's go to the next slide. Remember what I told you, the locking jaw, right? Right here, the apron and the fifth wheel skid plate, there's no space, right? There's no space. There's no light coming between them. The locking jaw is this right here that goes left to right. The kingpin is top to bottom. When you back up and the kingpin goes through this opening and it pushes a pressure plate that engages a locking jaw. That locking jaw goes around the shackle of the kingpin. And man, if you get this connection, you throw it off a mountain, the truck would be in a million pieces. This here, the kingpin and the locking jaw on the apron, they'll be intact because that stuff is impossible to take apart. That's why you're checking your release arm. When this locks into place, the release arm should also be locked into place. And this makes a very distinct sound. When that locking jaw goes clink, when it goes around that kingpin, there's only one sound that is that sound in the world. If this sounds muffled or it came out of a box, uh, you don't have to, you're going to pull the release arm, you're going to disconnect. You don't have to pull all the way forward. You're going to pull forward. I mean, you don't have to pull all the way out from underneath the truck. You're going to pull forward and then you're going to back in and you're going to try to hit it where it's going to make that very distinct sound. Let's go to the next slide. Right now, right, the locking and safety devices. What about the securely mounted? It's not cracked, not broken, right? The locking jaw is around the kingpin. You checked. Remember, I'm verifying that the locking and safety devices are working correctly because when we were inside the truck, remember, how do I check my fifth wheel skid plate? The locking jaw is in the lock position. Well, I checked it with a tug test. The truck moved forward. When I pulled on the trailer did not move, and there was no play in my fifth wheel connection. And also, remember that release arm I was showing you earlier? The release arm, if the release arm is like engaged, it'll be in the lock position. So we're visually checking what we did physically with the truck. That we pulled on we did the tug test. What we did physically with the truck, now we're checking visually, right? Let's go to the next slide. The next thing I'm checking for as I work my way backwards to the back of the truck, I got my landing gear, right? The landing gear It's the support frame. You got the crank handle, right, that brings the landing gear up and down, and you have the foot pads. So my landing gear, support frame, my crank handle, and my foot pads. See how these are fully raised? And these ones are on the floor, just to give you a contrast. Let's check the next frame. Also, when we're checking the landing gear, not only are we checking the landing gear support frame, the crank handle, and the foot pads, we're checking this here. There should be the proper clearance, right? I should have the proper clearance from truck to trailer. So when I'm turning, nothing's touching. My landing gear and my clearance. My landing gear support frame, remember the crank handle and the feet. What about them? They're all securely mounted. All not cracked, not broken. They're all no missing hardware. The crank handle, remember the crank handle's in the lock position, and my feet are all the way up. The landing gear has also the proper clearance from the truck and or trailer. So when I'm turning, like if you're turning, you're not that stuff's not getting caught up. You're not ripping the crap out of the mud flaps and stuff like that. Or you're tearing up the tires. Want to make sure you got the proper space. Let's go to the next slide. Now the next slide, remember, now we're checking the side of the truck, right? And in the back of the truck. We're checking this right here. My reflective tape. Reflective tape, my DOT tape. It's on the side, right? And it's on the back of the truck. My reflective tape on the side and on the back of the truck, it's what? It's present and affixed to the trailer. And here, remember, now we're checking. You got the lights on top. You got your lenses and reflectors. Sometimes the trucks have little plastic reflectors, which are just what they are. It's like they reflect, they bounce back light. Sometimes here, at least in the back of the truck, anything that's on the back of the truck has to be red, right? Anything on the side, the marker light here, this light here that's red on every truck in the world, that is your marker light. That marks. So when imagine you're super dark at night and you see the little red light there lit up. That tells you where the end of your trailer is on the right and the left, right? Left and right side. And a lot of times when you're pushing on the brake, uh, right above the clearance light is another little fish eye light. That's your ABS light. But a lot of times when it says ABS and stuff like that, man, that thing takes forever to. Sometimes you got to do a lot of troubleshooting for those things. So let's see, what are we checking for back here on the side and on the back of the truck? We're checking my lenses and reflectors, right? My lenses and reflectors. What about the lenses and reflectors? They're securely mounted. They're not cracked, not broken. They're the proper color. They're not missing, and they're clean and clear. And the DOT reflective tape, right, which is on the side and the back of the trailer, my DOT reflective tape, it's present and affixed to the trailer. So right now we just got to the end of the truck. Like this video is a little bit long, but I'm doing a lot of explanation. We got to the end of the truck. We're not going to get directly behind the truck. We're going to kind of get on that left backhand corner so I can see down. I can see down the side of the truck. Then I'm going to tell the examiner, hey, Mr. Examiner, how much time I got left? See, I've been doing this and it's an hour. So he's going to tell me, man, you got You got 24 minutes. 24 minutes? Oh my gosh, I got a lot of time left. Then I'm going to tell the examiner, my lenses and reflectors, my DOT tape on the front and the back, and then I'm going to work my way forward. My chambers and cross members on my trailer and chassis, my frame and cross member, the rebuild frame and cross member of my truck. I'm not going to just I'm going to tell the examiner how much time I got left. And if he tells me, man, I tell him, man, I can jump over this truck in one jump. He's going to say, you sure you can jump over this truck? I go, man, I'll flip over this truck. You can flip? Damn. I might be missing one or two things. And I might be 1 point away from failing the test because you have to have 10 points. 10 points is a lot of stuff because there's things that are 3 items that is one thing. 4 items count for 1 point. So if I'm missing 1 or 2 things, the examiner might say, you sure you can jump over that truck? He's already letting you know, hey, man, you're missing 1 or 2 things. So if you have 30 minutes, 40 minutes, or whatever minutes, you're going to backtrack. You're going to go back and you're going to rectify. Check, double check, and make sure that you rectified it, all the answers, that you didn't miss anything on the list. All right, guys and gals, we've gone a little bit farther than I wanted to, but it's an hour, but it's very informative. Check out, please like and subscribe, share this video, like this video. Thank you.